Alrighty. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Credit Unions Forum, where we bring together leaders, innovators, and change makers from across the credit union movement to share ideas that help all of us better serve our members and strengthen our institutions. I'm your host, Greg Cook, and Credit Union CEO. Today's conversation is one every credit union leader, marketer, and board member will want to hear. We all know that our mission is different from banks, but simply having a great mission isn't enough if people don't know who we are or why they should choose us. Joining me today is Jim Pond, co-founder of JXM, a company that has helped credit unions across the country elevate their brands, grow membership, increase lending opportunities, and connect with members in more meaningful ways. Jim spent years helping organizations move beyond simply doing marketing to developing strategies that produce measurable results. Jim, welcome to Credit Unions Forum. It's great to have you with us.
That's a pretty good intro. I hope I live up to it.
All righty. Jim, for those who may not know you yet, tell us a little bit about your journey, what led you into working, almost exclusively with credit unions, and what keeps you passionate about this industry.
Well, Matt and I started working in the credit union space, 15 or so years ago. Interestingly enough, at a credit union where his mom was was in charge of marketing there, and we had just kind of been a few years into starting our consultancy. And interestingly enough, the CEO at the time asked Matt to come in to. It was helping him. He was having some sort of tech challenge, and he knew that Matt knew a lot about tech. So Matt went in there and helped him out with something. And the CEO said, "Hey, could I know that you're starting, a company and you're kind of getting going. Feel free to invoice me for your time." And Matt, being very, very wise, said, "How about instead of invoicing, you let me come in and pitch you guys an idea?" And he said, "Sure." So Matt comes back to the office and he goes, "Hey, we need an idea for a credit union." I go, "All right." So I go and I start doing a little bit of research and find out that credit unions at the time were having a challenging time growing millennial membership. And millennials were, that was all everyone wanted millennials. That's what they wanted. And reality is credit unions still are in that space today where they want people in that,
Younger.
18,
Yeah.
35 age range. But they're just not called millennials anymore. What are they? Gen Z now, and pretty soon it's going to be Gen Alpha.
Yes.
Um, but we did some campaigns for them, ultimately focused on growing loans, teaching people about the difference between a credit union and a bank. That got picked up by some of the trade press, and we started getting phone calls from other credit unions. So you fast forward to now, and we've worked with credit unions ranging in assets from about a quarter of a billion up to about 5 billion is the range that we've worked with, and they're pretty much all over the entire country at this point. So the thing that I like most about working with credit unions is the value that we're able to bring, because both myself from my seat, which is primarily on business strategy and data analysis, and Matt's on the creative side, we bring a very pragmatic approach that sometimes is a little bit lost on credit unions. The marketing, a lot of credit union marketing, and I'm not saying that it's negative, but it focuses heavily. There's a lot of things on community engagement, community education. Those things are very, very hard to measure. And it's very difficult to know that they are delivering the bottom line results that you need. So we saw an opening in the marketplace to bring more of a kind of a hard-nosed growth approach to what we do. So our focus is strictly on member growth and growing wallet share. There are plenty of firms out there that do like experience, PR level stuff. They do financial education, community engagement. We do none of that. We're basically a mercenary force for member growth and growth in wallet share. And everything that we do is through that lens. How do we do that as efficiently as possible? Because there's always opportunities to do that. You look at a lot of credit unions, they're spending, some of them hundreds, some of them thousands of dollars in marketing per new member they're bringing on, which is just an absolutely unsustainable model. Yet it just continues year after year after year, and they're not seeing the growth they need. And it's because their marketing departments are stretched far too thin, and most of the time they're spending a lot of their energy and efforts in areas that, while they're important, and I'm not saying they don't matter, they're ultimately not going to lead to like the growth that the credit union needs. So
Sure.
that's what I love. The opportunities are just everywhere.
Now, I know, I think I probably first heard you a couple of years ago at a speak that you were giving, which I'd like to kind of talk about some of your talks before we finish today too. What you were just talking about marketing. Now, you've said, you know, credit unions do marketing, and maybe they don't have a marketing problem per se, but they have a visibility problem. Now, what do you mean by that, and why is it such a challenge for credit unions today?
Well, a lot of them, and I don't mean just on the the lower end of asset classification. I see this in multi-billion-dollar credit unions. They're under-resourced for the mission that the marketing departments are being given. Not only are they tasked with growth, but they're tasked with, perhaps running the foundation, education, internal communications, external communications, and there's so many things pulling them in every which way that it's very, very difficult for them to focus heavily on growth, right? And a lot of the visibility that is being leveraged, it may be visible, but it isn't measured, and it also isn't held accountable for growth. So you have to make sure that every single dollar that's being invested is being held accountable for what it is delivering. And if you're not doing that, then that isn't marketing. It's something else. For example, if you're going out and you're doing community sponsorships, right?
Mhm.
I'm not saying that those are something you should or shouldn't be doing. That's not my focus. But what they're not is they're not marketing. And the reason why is ultimately you're unable to measure the contribution when you have a banner hung up at a community event, right? There's no real way to say these things are driving revenue, they're driving new membership, they're driving loans, deposits, et cetera. And so much of credit union marketing, especially in kind of that low and mid market, is focused on those things because it's visible to executives, but it's not really a focus for consumers. And we're not driving people to action. We're just driving
Sure.
visibility, but with no purpose.
Yeah, well, so a board member sees the banner if they're out at some kind of run or walk or something, they see that they're out there, but they really have no clue what value they're getting out of it. So,
Exactly.
earlier, before we started recording, I was sharing with you, I'm friends with pretty much most of all the credit union CEOs here locally, but kind of more specifically on a larger, you know, country basis, I probably network more with the, smaller credit unions, 250 and below, even 100 million. If you were to walk into, let's say, $100 million credit union, which ironically that's about where we're at, but if you were to walk into $100 million credit union tomorrow, what's the first thing you'd evaluate before recommending a single marketing campaign?
You'd want to be well, the very first thing you want to look at is the the marketing spend against member acquisition, right? And so how much is actually being spent, be that $200, $500, $750 for every new member that's being onboarded? And is that sustainable and good for the credit union? Because every credit union is going to have a different cost per member acquisition that is acceptable, right? So that's going to be the very first thing to look at is what are we currently spending to grow, and is that a sustainable model? If it's sustainable, then it's like, all right, if it's sustainable and effective, how do we scale this to encourage more growth? If it's not sustainable, well, then we have to start looking and go, where is this waste? how do we deal with this waste, and where should we better be deploying these dollars?
Okay. Now, we all in the credit union space, and I've had similar conversations. We pride ourselves on great service, competitive rates, putting members first. I mean, you hear that, but the challenge is every other credit union can say the same thing. How can a
Mhm.
credit union truly differentiate itself?
I always say to turn someone on, you got to turn someone off. We can't be everything to everyone. So credit unions, many, many times, like, bank with us because we're a credit union, because credit union, and you own it. But people, that doesn't resonate. Credit unions have been saying that for 30 years now, and it still doesn't resonate. That isn't drawing a line in the sand of who you're for. So credit unions need to look at this and go, who are we for and who are we not for? And I'll use an example. If you're a credit union that has kind of a middle of the road um, member onboarding experience, and it takes a couple of forms, maybe a phone call, maybe an in-branch visit to become a member, you have absolutely no business going after someone that is highly engaged with neobanks and has experienced like Betterment and going online and opening up a checking account in 30 seconds. So you need to be realistic and go, we're never going to get this person. We're never going to convert that. So we need to stay away from that. That's the challenge that a lot of credit unions have, is they are under the misconception that they might be open to everyone, but they're not the right choice for everyone. So you need to look and say, who are we the right choice for? How can we put that out into the marketplace to make it clear that if you are an individual that fits this choice model, we're the credit union for you?
Instead of trying to be all things to all people, kind of come up with who their perfect avatar is and be true to that.
Exactly. And you're gonna turn some people off doing that. And you have to accept that, because the only way you're gonna get someone excited is by getting someone else to go, it's not for me. It's when we're just this amalgam of just all these different things that don't really stand out, that everyone goes, I don't know what that is. I don't know who it's for. My business partner, Matt, always talks about engineering preference. And he focuses more on creative brand messaging. What is going to get someone excited about a credit union's brand, and the idea of engineering preference and making sure that when the time comes and an individual has a specific financial need, they're going to gravitate towards your institution because you've shown them that you are the preferred group for whatever particular product or service or stage of life they might happen to be in.
Now, earlier we were talking about some data and analytics. I know marketing reports are full of impressions,
Mhm.
clicks, reach. You've been
Yep.
outspoken that CEOs and boards should be asking different questions. What metrics actually matter when measuring marketing success?
So it really all comes down to two simple truths: member growth, wallet share. Those are the two things we're going for. Now, things like impression and reach and cost per click, and those things matter inside of marketing, but too often marketing agencies like my own or internal marketing teams will use those measurements to try and sell that marketing is working. But those are really only vanity metrics once you take them outside of marketing, because marketing should be using those metrics to make things more efficient. They're not success metrics. Success metrics are all about growth, member retention, and growth within individual members. So those are the numbers that marketing should be held accountable to, and that the board and the executive level should be looking at. What are we getting from a growth perspective?
Well, I know we're in some interesting times with AI, so it's kind of hard to predict what certain things are going to look like in the next, say, 3 to 5, after 3 to 5 years out. But within the next, say, 3 to 5 years, what do you think will separate the credit unions that thrive from those that simply survive when it comes to attracting new members and growing loans and deposits?
Well, I think they have to be a lot more aggressive in finding one or two strong value propositions, to allow them to bring in. I use, it's kind of a crass term, but I use the idea of the gateway drug, right? We all heard that in high school going through the DARE program. Everyone would
Yeah,
talk about how marijuana was the gate, and if you did that once, that was it. You were
right.
gonna fall off the wagon into the land of drugs, which ultimately we learned probably wasn't the case. But the gateway drug is that product or service that's we're going to be able to put out in the market and capture someone, right? And then now, once they can experience that credit union, now it's time to deepen that relationship. So instead of constantly letting campaigns and outward message be driven by the need of the credit union, and that is an important part, we can't ignore it, but too often, credit unions are far too focused on, well, we need deposits, so we're doing this, or we need loans, so we're doing this. That's internal focused. That's the credit union's need. What we should be doing is looking at what is the need of the community, what is the need of the specific membership group that we want to go after, what's going to appeal to them, not what our balance sheet needs are. Again, you do need to look after that and pay heed to it when the tap on the shoulder comes and, hey, we have too much, we're loaned out, we need to start focusing on deposits a little bit more often. That's fine, but that shouldn't be the tip of the spear 100% of the time. And it's very rare that I come across year-long planning where that isn't just kind of the soup of the day. It's always what the credit union needs and not what the member or the market needs.
Now, you've talked with lots of different credit unions all over the country. Would you say you've came across maybe one common denominator? What would be one marketing myth in the credit union industry that you'd love to see disappear forever?
That measurement is really hard because it's not. It takes time. And when you have a lot of disjointed systems, it can be challenging, but it's not hard to start. And too many credit unions they look at measurement from a marketing performance standpoint as this giant mountain they have to climb, and they can only see the peak, with the peak being, we spent, these dollars on this effort and it specifically led to this many loans. Like that's the top of the peak, right? Don't start there. Just start with basic measurement techniques, looking at how much time people are spending on the site. What are they doing there? How can we get them to engage with us more? So it's more about taking that measurement climb and breaking it into achievable pieces, as opposed to looking at it as this giant mountain that has to be climbed.
Okay. So, real quick, before we finish up, I know you were talking about competition and different credit unions when they start talking about competition and looking at all different groups. Why don't you kind of elaborate a little bit more on that?
Sure. So one of the other, and this would probably fall well into the category of that of those misnomers, is that we're competing with everyone. And while everyone, and what I mean by that is national, regional, local, other banks, other credit unions, because credit unions do compete with credit unions.
Right.
What While those all may be competition, you can't be competitive with all of them. So what I always push, especially with credit unions that are in that, 1 billion and under, 500 million and under, 250 million under asset size, you need to find the weakest competition out there and aggressively attack them, because that's how you're going to gain membership. If you are going after a competitor that's got you beat across the board, you're just shoveling money, into a fire. You're never gonna win. You need to find those organizations that you compete with, whether it be on product, service, availability, how awesome your people are, the good work of your foundation, your community ties, whatever you want to select. Then you need to compare your strength against those other organizations. You can do that digitally, going through their site. If it's a service level thing, start calling their call centers and see what it's like to experience their service level. And if you do 10 phone calls, and most of them, the service level experience wasn't that great, oh, we might have an attack point here. Or if you have a competitor that recently went through a merger and they have an upcoming core conversion, I love when competitors do mergers and there's a core conversion coming, because they're almost impossible to pull off flawlessly, and you're going to have some upset people. Well, that's unfortunate for them, but that's an opportunity for us. So let's target that opportunity and go after it, because in the end, this is a zero-sum game. A loan to the competition is a loan that you don't get. A deposit to the competition is a deposit you don't get. We can share members and we can share customers, but we can't share those moments. Those moments are not shareable. Someone gets them and someone doesn't.
All righty. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Jim. I really appreciate you sharing your experience, perspectives, and the practical advice you've given our listeners. One of the biggest takeaways from today's conversation is that marketing isn't just about advertising. It's about telling your story, building trust, and creating those meaningful connections that ultimately help more people experience the credit union difference. To everyone watching and listening, thank you for joining us for another episode of Credit Unions Forum. If you found value in today's discussion, please share it with your colleagues, board members, your team. The stronger we become as individual credit unions, the stronger our movement becomes together. Until next time, continue finding new ways to serve your members, invest in your communities, and lead with purpose. I'm Greg Cook, and this has been Credit Unions Forum. Thank you for watching.